now time for the Daily Diamond Dash, looking back on a short 7-game Thursday slate in Major League Baseball before a robust and full weekend ahead that starts with a full Friday slate here in May. But we go back to Thursday night, no sweep for the first time this year for the Houston Astros against the New York Yankees, who, of course, were swept in H-Town in their first 4-game set of the season against the Yanks, had lost the first 2 this week up in the Bronx, but do make sure they win the series finale against New York yesterday, holding on to a 4-3 win, despite a 473-foot home run from Aaron Judge in the home half of the 8th. That did make it a 1-run game. Houston finally gets a win over New York, now only 11 games under 500 at 13-24.
Yeah, how about that? Hader got the save yesterday, which was important. Get that, back end of the bullpen situated here, and also in a clutch environment where you're looking to beat the Yankees and just get your season back on track as you improve to 13-24. The one thing from yesterday's numbers, Marcus Stroman did struggle a little bit with left-handed batters coming into this game.
Yep.
And quite frankly, I missed the boat on this one because there's 2 left-handed batters in this lineup you should have been focused on. That was Alvarez. He had a titanic shot here for a home run and also plated that one singular RBI off the home run, but also singular. Talking about Singleton, he hit one to the moon yesterday also in Yankee Stadium as a left-handed batter. So those 2 guys cashing tickets on RBIs and also home runs. But that's a good win for the Astros. As we say, Ben, you got to start somewhere. You can't win 7 games in 1 game. So getting those good vibes in New York, getting a good start out of Blanco, 5 2/3 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. Hader gets a save. Some of your big guys hit home runs. Maybe this could be a building block for the Astros. But how many times, Ben, are we going to talk about a building block for the Astros? Sooner or later, you got to start to get it done. Maybe this gets it started.
Yeah, it was Yordan Alvarez getting the scoring starting in the home half of the first. The Astros actually homered in each of their first innings at the dish in all 3 games. It was Kyle Tucker going long with a solo shot in each of the first 2. Yordan Alvarez followed by John Singleton just a couple of batters later, that 2-run shot. And we have talked about how the Astros starting staff without Framber Valdez so far this year has struggled. Not Ronald Blanco. He is 4-0 with a 2.23 ERA to start this year. The Astros needed a quality start, and they got it. So you're right, Donnie. It's piece by piece over a long Major League Baseball season. Still a hole to crawl out of, but the Astros get a big victory yesterday against the Yankees. 13-24. Houston wins outright as an underdog. The Yanks still looking good on the other side. 11 games above 500. Houston 11 games below. The Yankees 11 games above at 25-14.
Yeah, and again, you have to start from yesterday. That's no shame that the Yankees still had a good series, but at least the Astros could salvage a game and move forward out of there. We're waiting on some of those big superstar pitchers to come back into that Yankees lineup, talking about Garrett Cole, who last year was the best pitcher in the American League. That is going to help, but I think more of the focus for us is the Houston Astros, what we always thought of this team and the depth they've had from the minor league system, the ability just to bring up random pitchers who are really good at the Major League Baseball level. They're playing so far below board of what we anticipated, 13-24, that really there's only one way to go up, and they're not all that injured in that lineup. This lineup should be able to hit. The back end of the bullpen should shut it down. You just need decent starting pitching, and the Houston Astros can get back into this thing. And as we said, getting 1 win is a good start, but you can't make up all this ground in a week and a half. It's going to take some time. You just have to look at that slow build throughout the summer where you chip away at the team in first place and you chip away at that wild card position.
Can we get a round of applause for the Chicago White Sox? The White Sox have won 2 consecutive games, and now Chicago gets to double-digit wins. They are one of 2 teams entering yesterday that did not get to the double-digit win threshold, but now Chicago has. The White Sox a 3-2 victory yesterday over the Cleveland Guardians, who entered atop the American League Central, and that's where they remain. But Chicago gets a big victory at home as an underdog. The Guardians were a -154 road favorite on the south side of Chicago. The White Sox win their second straight. They scored 3 runs in the first 2 innings. Cleveland plated 2 in the top of the 8th, but the White Sox hold on for their second straight win.
Yeah, Paul DeJong's been good for the past couple of days here for the White Sox. Yesterday, only getting that one base hit, but also turned into an RBI. But one of my favorite Major League Baseball hitters here from the left side on the Guardians, that's Naylor. He hit his 10th home run of the year yesterday, man. That guy's an absolute RBI machine in the middle of that lineup. And look at that. Yes, the White Sox actually getting to double-digit victories at the expense of a really good Guardians team. Just goes to tell you on any given day, guys can perform. You take a look at Eric Fedde, who was a guy that you probably would be fading the past couple of years in Major League Baseball, specifically from his national days. 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, no earned runs, 3 Ks, and no walks. That's a really good start here and a good win for the White Sox.
So a little bit of ground tightening up then in the American League Central. The White Sox still in the cellar, 10-28. The Guardians still a 1.5 lead over our guy, Vinny Pasquantino and the Royals, who we'll talk about in just a moment, and the Minnesota Twins, who are playing much better baseball than the start of their season. Minnesota wins big yesterday, 11-1 over Seattle as a -118 home money line favorite. But you remember the total for this game entering DRS in the fourth and final of this midweek set against Seattle? 6.5. Yeah, the two teams sky over that as Minnesota plates 11 runs.
Yeah, how about that? It's crazy that you have something that low and take a look at those two starting pitchers and figure they would dominate. And the 6.5 was done by the second inning, which was incredible. Like, you breeze to that easy victory. But Minnesota is sneaky good at the plate right now. A lot of those guys are on my radar on a night-to-night basis here to get RBIs. Because why? They have the ability to throw a lot of left-handed batters at right-handed pitchers and vice versa. That comes in handy at times. 11 runs plated yesterday by the Twins, 22-15 now. That's a really good win in a game where we didn't expect all that much offense, and the Twins basically handled it all by themselves.
The Twins almost went over that pregame total of 6.5 in the first. They scored 5 runs in the first inning, and Manuel Margot, big 5 RBI day at the plate for Minnesota as well. We will talk about the Pasquatch, Vinny Pasquantino on the other side as we continue to recap a short Thursday slate that sets the stage for the weekend in Major League Baseball. Up next, live right here on the Early Line. A gray day in Milwaukee, but not the good kind of gray for the St. Louis Cardinals. It was a bad gray day for the Cards and good for the Brewers. In the opening game of their weekend set between these two divisional foes, Sonny Gray and St. Louis were a -142 road money line favorite in Milwaukee, but Gray got roughed up early and often. He allowed 3 earned in the opening inning against Milwaukee. The Cardinals tried to rally. He allowed another one in the second. 6 earned out of Sonny Gray yesterday as the Brew Crew wins 7-1 in the opening game of their set against St. Louis. Again, the Redbirds entered this year as the favorites to win the National League Central. St. Louis has now dropped 5 straight games and is 7 games below 500 at 15-22.
Yeah, there's a good chance that the St. Louis Cardinals finish in the basement here in this division, and rightfully so. There's just not a lot of talent going through here. Usually it's St. Louis bringing up those young, talented players all over the place on a year-to-year basis because they have one of the best teaching farm systems in Major League Baseball, and that's not working out. Even looking at the game yesterday, the handicap on this was I thought we would get an under because Gray would be able to hold the bats down in Milwaukee, and St. Louis doesn't really have all that many bats to begin with here. So Sonny Gray going 5 innings, pitched 7 hits and 6 earned runs was quite a shocker in this point, but what wasn't a shocker again is St. Louis. 1 run on 6 hits here. They just can't do anything correct, and they're getting injured at this point. We'll see where they go throughout the summer months, but also keep in mind, this is a Milwaukee offense that we talk about so many times over the past couple years. Boy, if they could just get some timely hitting, I always put that kindly as, yes, they can't hit, and maybe they get 3 runs and get a big hit as opposed to it. But now you get Yelich back in that lineup. Do you see what he did last night, Ben?
Right.
3 of 4. So you fire that in there. And also, Rhys Hoskins coming over from Philadelphia, providing that power. Another home run yesterday. It's a much better looking lineup than we've seen over the past couple years. So maybe the Brewers are much more of a live, dog price team looking towards that pennant in the NL than maybe what we thought coming into the season. I like what I see out of the Brewers right now. I can't stand what I see out of the Cardinals.
How could you? Lars Nootbaar, the only run yesterday, a solo shot for the Cardinals. Milwaukee played 7. Christian Yelich is back. He's batting .333 this year. Was 3 of 4 yesterday, as Donnie mentioned, with an RBI triple. That was the last run that Sonny Gray allowed. So now when we look at the National League Central, the Brewers have a half-game lead in the standings, 22-15, over the Cubbies, who also have 22 wins, but one more loss with 16. And yet Chicago, the favorites to win the National League Central, nearly 60 cents or so in front of Milwaukee. St. Louis still the third best price, but the Cardinals in the cellar as they finished last year, 20 games below 500. Not normally something we say about St. Louis within this division.
Yeah, and again, I say this in a meaningful there. Even though the odds say that, I just don't see any, redeeming value right now of the Cardinals and what they do at the trade deadline with maybe some value, some of the players that they have to get rid of and maybe retool this roster. I just don't see it right now. Contreras was a big part of that offense, and as we said, he breaks his arm catching this week, so he'll be out a minimum of 6 weeks. Those things aren't going to work those way out overnight. So I look at the top of the standings. By the way, Chicago Cubs frontline starting pitching wins, man. They got that frontline starting pitching. So it looks like it's probably going to be, for me, obviously the Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers fighting this out throughout the summer, and rightfully so. We'll see who has the upper hand and maybe adds on at the deadline.
A little bit of a rivalry between those two clubs at the top as well. Of course, Craig Counsell leaving Milwaukee this offseason to go to Chicago. We thought the Brewers were tearing everything down, 7 games above 500. So the Cardinals have lost at this moment 5 consecutive games. Not the longest active losing streak in Major League Baseball or even in the NL Central. Make that 8 losses in a row for Cincinnati as the D-backs pull off the sweep over the Reds yesterday in Cincy. The Reds were booked as a home money line favorite. It was an RBI game-winning single from Corbin Carroll in the 8th that gives Arizona a 5-4 win. Bad times for the Reds. The D-backs starting to figure things out. They've won 4 straight.
Yeah, they are. And how about this? Jock Peterson, one of those guys where you come into the season and say, okay, he might be on my radar as a good left-handed power bat. Just this week alone, Ben, I'm 0-2 on his wagers, but here's how they played out. Bet him, doesn't get an RBI. The very next day, home run. The very next day, I bet him. Doesn't get an RBI. The very next day, which was yesterday, a home run. Now, granted, you're just not taking guys on a day-to-day basis. They have to make sense working within your numbers, but it's one of those players that has really been getting the best of me. And also, you know what? Another guy, Ellie De La Cruz, who I continually bet when the situation makes sense, he doesn't even get on base. What does he do yesterday? Of course, he gets an RBI breaking an 0 for 17 slump when I didn't have him. But that's the way it is. It's baseball, and that's a lot of fun when even though you're not winning, the next day, that ticket's going to cash.
The reigning National League pennant winners, Arizona, now just 2 games below 500 at 18-20.